Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dazzling Dave, and as the Bundesliga has restarted this weekend, and it's been 2 months since the Premier League and indeed football in England was obviously brought to a halt because of the pandemic, on potentially the restart of the Premier League or deciding the Premier League by different options and the stance that each team is reportedly taking. I'm going to look through that in alphabetical order. For example, Chief Executive of the Premier League, Richard Masters, said last week about the possibility of the season being curtailed or decided by other means, such as points per game or a weighted points per game. Obviously, with the season, if it did come to an end, it would cost the clubs in the region of £1 billion in terms of TV revenue and sponsorships. So they're hoping, obviously, to get it up and running on the 12th of June, but with player concerns and training getting together and obviously training as groups and having a proper full season, it's probably going to get pushed back to the 19th of June. So as we're doing this with alphabetically, let's start with Arsenal. Their stance is that they're reportedly desperate to return. The Gunners know that if the season was to finish now, they would not qualify for Europe. That would be really tough for them. They basically posted losses last year of 30 million and have a £240 million wage bill. They have managed to secure a 12.5% pay cut for the players until March next year, and they're also keen to play their home games at the stadium because of the sponsor at their stadium, the Emirates, because of their sponsorship commitments as well. And if they did lose the Sky money, they'd make even further losses. On to Aston Villa. So their stance is that they're against neutral, and don't forget they have that game in hand. They don't want to play at neutral venues, as I said. They're also keen to play on when it is safe to do so. It's in their interest really, because like if the season were to end now, they're in the relegation, and with the FA chairman saying that they would veto any attempts to curtail promotion or relegation, that would mean Villa would go down. And Villa, with 5 home games, okay, without the crowd, and one of their, is it McGann, that would be coming back to play for them after a long-term injury, I think would feel confident that they can get out of the relegation zone. So on to Bournemouth, the Cherries. Well, they were reportedly against neutral venues. There's no other club in the top flight that is as reliant because of the size of their stadium, obviously, and their fan base, as the TV revenues as the Cherries are. So they definitely are against the neutral venue side of things. Interestingly enough, if it was basically ended now, they would go down. But if it was decided on a weighted points per game situation, they would stay up in place of West Ham. But if it was a situation where the season ended now and they went down, or they had to play on at neutral venues, they'd have no choice really. Brighton's stance is very, very strong against using neutral venues. Their CEO Paul Barger has been very outspoken against this, stating that home advantage is worth about half a point extra in the Premier League. Brighton, out of their 9 games, have 5 games at home at the Amex Stadium, and 18 out of their 29 points have come at home. On to Burnley. They are currently 10th in the table at the moment, have been publicly very keen to return. Sean Dyche held a conference call with his players, and they're all basically behind coming back as long as it's safe to do so. Everyone wants to get back into training, and club chairman Mike Garrett has stated that if the season was to end, it would cost Burnley £50 million. So they're very keen to get the season back underway for obvious reasons. Chelsea have stated they are keen and ready to return. All their players return to the UK and back in training. Frank Lampard has insisted he's only keen to play again if there's categorical proof that it's safe to do so. Palace have been basically major proponents of the season starting. Their chairman Steve Parris was excellent in declaring why the Premier League should return. And they've stated that playing at neutral venues is the least worst option. Boss Roy Hodgson, who's the oldest manager in the Premier League, has said he's willing to return to work, and they're currently 11th in the table at the moment. They'd actually had 3 successive wins before the season was suspended. Everton's stance is they're pretty much keen to return. You can understand why. They stand to lose £43 million if the season is stopped. So as long as it's safe to do so, they want to get back in action. Leicester City now, and they're basically keen to get underway as well, as long as it's safe to work. The Foxes, the season could cost them 55 million if it was to be ended, and currently, the other thing to look at for them, if the season was stopped now, they are actually in the Champions League places, and the Liverpool, obviously champions-elect runaway leaders, are basically relaxed and ready to return to action. They don't really want to have the season ended. It would cost them obviously financially, and they do want to earn the title on the pitch rather than have it handed to them and have an asterisk or whatever it is. You know, that sort of thing that you never really won it. So they're chilled out. They haven't been very vocal. They don't need to be really. They're so far ahead. And once we get back into action, surely it's only just a matter of time before they get the points needed to actually be crowned champions. So Manchester City, they've been relaxed over a return. Sergio Aguero has been one of the most outspoken that he's scared about returning for family concerns. You can understand why some players would be feeling that as well, across all the clubs really. Man City still have the Champions League to play for, and they're still in the FA Cup, but obviously the title is pretty much all but gone for them. So they're quite chilled out about it, obviously, and have these concerns from high-profile players. On to Manchester United, keen to return. They were in absolute on fire, wasn't they, just before the season was curtailed, in a really good run of form, moving up the tables, trying to make a play for that Champions League position that they often feel is theirs by rights. And they've been strengthened, obviously on the field, they've been strengthened for the fitness of both Paul Pogba and Marcus Rashford. So they also want to return to Old Trafford rather than play at neutral venues because of the lucrative sponsorship deals around their stadium. Their manager, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, has also stated that any player that doesn't want to play won't be made to. Newcastle ready to return, but they have had Danny Rose that's been very outspoken about his concerns with returning to play. Obviously a lot of the talk around Newcastle has been around their Saudi takeover, and there's been a lot of takeover talk, hasn't there, around Newcastle over previous years, and this one seems to be going through, but there are again concerns about that. Norwich City, so obviously they sit completely bottom of the table at the moment, and if the season was to end there, they would obviously be in the relegation positions. Their sporting director Stuart Reddett has rephrased the conversation recently over relegation, stating that if the Premier League can finish the season and they finish in the relegation zones, but the Football League, i.e. the Championship, don't, then it's not fair that they get relegated for completing the season, and would hopefully want to stay in the Premier League, and that would be what would happen. It basically means that it needs completing on the pitch, both promotion and relegation. Sheffield United, keen to finish. Chris Wilder, the manager, did say to his players that none of them would be forced to play if there was someone that didn't want to, but they've unanimously said that they do want to finish the season. They're just 5 points off a Champions League spot as well at the moment, and they've also got a quarter-final of the FA Cup should that be played. Ironically, if the season was to be curtailed on a points per game basis, they would move up a position above Wolves, but they are keen to play to finish. They've got 10 games to play, which is one more than most of the rest of the division. Southampton, their stance is pretty relaxed, but they are keen basically to get the season completed. So Tottenham Hotspur, they're desperate obviously to return, despite some reservations. Why? Basically because they stand to lose up to £100 million, and they've got the lowest wages to turnover. I think it's about 38%. Mourinho has been very outspoken, basically saying at a managers meeting, if you don't want to play, go and watch the Bundesliga. Whether that was very tongue-in-cheek, but it would be typical Mourinho. And as it stands at the moment, Spurs have no guarantee of European football if it were to end now, because they're outside of those places. So they will be keen to play on to try and secure European football, and also to avert as much losses as possible, as I say, up to £100 million if it was to end at the moment. So Watford, interesting one there. They're against neutral venues. Their chief executive, Scott Duxbury, has basically publicly said, is there any sporting integrity if neutral venues are used? They are keen to finish it. They want to basically play at home, and if they do have to use neutral venues, they don't want any relegation on the table at all. So West Ham United, the Hammers, obviously really early doors. Karen Brady came out in the press in one of her columns to basically say the season should be voided, restart. Obviously with West Ham where they are, you can understand why. However, they have now since been open to obviously finishing the season, but does not believe there should be any relegation. There's neutral venues, but are open to relegation and all that jazz as long as they can play their games home and away. Should there be it actually be curtailed at the moment by an average of points per game, it would drop West Ham automatically into the relegation zone. So as long as it's safe to do so and it's played on a home and away basis, they're happy to play the season to completion no matter how long it takes. So finally, Wolverhampton Wanderers, Wolves. Wolves were actually the last Premier League team to play a football match, which was the Olympiacos away game in Greece, which was 1-1, which obviously Wolves didn't really want to go and play. That was behind closed doors. John Ruddy has spoken about how everything's being sanitised and the testing that will be done, and Conor Cody, Wolves captain, has been out publicly and spoken about the season needed to be completed. So Wolves are ready to return, currently with a chance of obviously European football again next year, and even a chance of going into the Champions League, and have still got the opportunity to progress in this year's Europa League competition. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Just a few points and talks about. Leave your thoughts on what you think about the season. As I say, they're hoping to get it underway on the 12th of June, but there has been concerns from players and training, and basically saying that they need longer time to prepare. So it might be more likely that the season in England will recommence on the 19th of June. Leave your thoughts in the comment below. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and as I say, if you're brand new around here, please consider subscribing, and leave your thoughts on the current situation. And wherever you are in the world, stay safe.